Chapter 29. The Auric Envelope, How Affected. Although personal character determines certain prevalent and more or less permanent colors, the human aura expands and varies in colors and hues according to the nature and the intensity of man's thoughts and emotions, every thought having its effect. Thus the aura reflects absolutely what is transpiring within. Indeed, occultists say, the astral man, whose color is determined by his evolutionary progress, is the real man. The clearness of the thought form depends upon the thinking. If one is vivid, so will the other be, and the purity and beauty of the colors depends upon the purity and virtue of the thought. Indefinite thoughts make forms as cloudy and vague as the forces whence they emanate. In such cases, the colors blend indistinctly. The dreamer to dream true must picture clearly. No effect is greater than its cause. Of all psychic conditions no other is so infectious as depression, which grays all colors till indigo absorbs them. Worry, anxiety, and irritation also degrade the colors, vicious passions and vices pollute them. All degradation of colors by graying and browning changes and lowers their signification and coarsens their atomic structure. In every color this change is the seal of intense egoism, and usually of absorption in things material, in sordid and selfish interests. Remember that nature works the same on all her planes. God placed in her hands the implement of vibratory force, and through the varied character of these vibrations she chisels all forms, making fine forces visible through their color which proclaims their character and effect. We have the reflection of all the 49 fires within us. It is a comforting thought that the possibility of every color, every hue, every tone therefore of all perfection is within. Verily a bewilderingly complex creature is man. It is this variety of color which makes possible such a range of vocal power, especially influenced by arpus, the water vibration. For every modulation of tone is the effect of a distinctive modification of form through tatvic permutations, and hence has its special shade, tint, or hue of color. Different tints are produced by mingling a color with white, shades, by darkening or deepening with indigo or black, and hues, by the blending of color with color, which gives us green blues, yellow greens, and reddish blues. Rama Prasad says, various diseases may be cured, and good and bad tendencies imprinted on the prana by the power of sound, because sound imparts to the vital force its own colors, modified only in degree by the individual prana upon which susceptibility depends. Do you realize when listening to music that every tone has its distinguishing color and throws the ether and the air into vibrations of exquisite form, and thereby affects for good or ill the hearer? Thus, a Tejas-colored song rouses heat and excitement, as witness the effect of all patriotic songs, and may provoke intense emotion. The Akasha-colored song deepens melancholy and may cause fear and forgetfulness, and as every emotion of the human heart has its color, the sound of that color tends to rouse its corresponding emotion. The important science of color therapeutics, or chromopathy, is based upon this fact, as also all musical therapeutics, or medical music as the cult was called when first revived 100 years ago. The part that sound plays in our lives is so depreciated, so profoundly misunderstood, that too great emphasis cannot be given to these particulars, and repetition must be pardoned, for some minds can be reached only by such reiteration. Here is a good maxim to be given a prominent place in the home: sound is ever creating something. Shall it be evil or good? A few years ago, when the National Society of Musical Therapeutics was formed in New York, the newspapers took the usual lively interest in developing a sensation, and interviewed many prominent physicians to obtain views on the subject. The ignorance developed was amazing. One of the most noted nerve specialists in town said, "I have found music attractive to idiots, degenerates, and persons of abnormal temperaments, but I do not regard it as a therapeutic agent. A sonata of Beethoven's may benefit a lunatic, but in that case so would the rattle of elevated railroad trains." Thus this so-learned specialist is unable to distinguish between building and disintegrating sounds, between harmony and disrupturing discord, and is absolutely deaf and blind to their corresponding effects upon the nerves, man's sound register. Every tone of the human voice, whether in speech or song, shares with the thought it expresses in the effect upon the vital currents and their emanations in the auras. It affects instantly the aura of the speaker, then influences those of his hearers. Therefore is the training of the speaking voice of highest importance in the perfecting of the individual. If the words we utter bear the color of the Agni Tattva Tehas, anger, love, lust, our prana is colored red, and this redness turns upon ourselves. It may burn up our substance, we may look lean and lank, we may have 10,000 other diseases. Terrible retribution of angry words. If our words are full of divine love and adoration, kindness and morality, words which give pleasure and satisfaction to whosoever hears them, the colors of the Prithvi and the Apis, we become loving and beloved, adoring and adored, kind and moral, pleasing and pleased, satisfying and ever satisfied, nature's finer forces. As I quote the above, there is brought to my attention a most interesting result from experiments in chick breeding in a great hennery which is conducted strictly upon psychological principles. From the hour the eggs, over 400, are placed in the incubator, the same attendant cares for them, turning and cooling them, and as he handles the eggs, he talks to them, telling them the germ of life is there, they must be good little chicks, and will come out of their shells in so many days, whatever it be. Like clockwork, on the 21st day, every chick peeps forth from its shell, and here is the point that bears upon our study: if the attendant be changed and a strange voice greet these just hatched babies, they are panic-stricken and flee about wildly for refuge, but the voice that has talked to them through the shell for 21 days, has power to reassure them and restore confidence. Hearing it, every baby chick turns toward the voice, begins to cheep happily, and to pick up food. The hens in this model hennery are played to violin music on wet and gloomy days to keep up their spirits, and the record of egg-laying proves that it is an effective stimulant. It is well known that hens are greatly frightened by disturbing noises, the barking of dogs, thunder, fireworks, and other explosives. Is not want of care in this respect a fruitful source of the many failures in chicken raising? When told that the color of a tone affects the nerves, hold in mind the fact that color and sound are the visible and audible effects of particular energies. It is the vibration which produces the given effect, whether it be our eyes or our ears which receive it and transmit it over our nerves, and the varied effects produced upon human beings by the same color or music are due to the modifications of individual idiosyncrasies, the peculiar colors active within and hence pulsating throughout every person's aura. Nature's seal, determining the key, modifies the response to external stimulants. While the ability to distinguish the varied colors in the auras of our fellows is still an exceptional gift, it is at the option of all to test the power of visible color to affect, favorably or unfavorably, the whole complex human being, that is, to act upon him physically as a stimulant or sedative of organic functions, and to affect him mentally and spiritually as well. The benefit derived from surrounding yourself with a certain color or wearing it is, that the objective presence of the color aids greatly in visualizing it internally, and by thinking the color till it is vividly present to your mental consciousness, you connect yourself with the tattvic currents of that color and draw them to you to furnish the right substance for subconscious activity, which you by this means consciously direct. Thus you actively accelerate the beneficent work of the needed tattvas, and in this way, rightly applied, color becomes a powerful aid in mental therapeutics. The colors most commonly seen in the so-called tattvic aura, really a misnomer, because all is tattvic, are, from the skin outward, luminous pearl white, blue, violet, yellow, red, or in reversed order from the luminous band. But there are many variations, as, orange-yellow, bright line, blue, orange-yellow, and red, or dark line, indigo, red, yellow, blue, and lavender-violet, and these changes in order and in colors are of course indicative of characteristic activities. With every change of tattvic and PRDNLC currents the intensity of the colors varies, the physical condition of vitality or fatigue is also plainly marked, and this whole chromatic band pulsates in rhythm with the breathing, broadening with expiration, and decreasing with inspiration. I think myself, though I have neither seen nor heard the fact conjectured, that this one phenomenon proves the tattvic aura to be the psychic breath between the dense and subtle bodies, the sthula and sukshma shiras. The tattvic currents split at the pulse and run up the fingers separately in the regular order, from thumb to little finger, of Akasha, Pheo, Tehas, Apis, and Prithvi. The air, Pheo, tattva dominates the whole hand as the index finger does its mates, and gives to it its remarkable tactile delicacy, its suppleness and dexterity. By examination of the pulse vibrations and the finger auras, the Hindu physician discovers which tattva is disordered and diagnoses the consequent disease accordingly. His index finger is sensitive to any preponderance of wind in the body, his middle finger, tcjas, to an excess of bile, and his ring finger, to the condition of the phlegm. Musical sounds affect the tattvic aura, intensifying not so much the existing colors as their lines of conjunction, the neutral point and especially, the luminous band lying next the skin, which is mainly akashic. This effect is not emotional, but indicates the inevitable mechanical, rhythmic connection of sound vibrations. I believe all crashing, tumultuous, warring noise causes a similar but greater disturbance, and that the irritating effect upon the nerves begins right here, the shock tangling the vibrations and even loosening the connection between the gross and subtle bodies. Emotional influences from music are much more powerful than these mere rhythmic disturbances in the color changes induced throughout the aura. The lower auras, tattvic, etheric double, and rami, extend farther out in the order named, and follow in shape all the outlines of the dense body. The three highest auras have the ovoid outlines of the auric envelope, and the aura of lower monas intermediate in form as in nature, while ovoid follows the sinuosities of the visible body, especially the movements of the head and shoulders. The etheric double has its own tattvic aura reflecting faintly the colors and geometrical figures of that playing upon the surface of the dense body. Any physical disturbance which is imminent can be seen in this form body, which is literally a shadow of the future. Thus, a lady, having a fair complexion, sat for her photograph and was amazed to see that her face in the negative was covered with specks. The next day she fell ill with smallpox. The camera had caught the etheric body. It is in the kamic and the two manasic auras that color plays most vividly and proclaims unmistakably the man within, for these are the desire and thought vehicles wherein the influences dominating and swaying the man set their seal of energy. The color is the outward indication of the force either used within, drawn by desire, or generated in that mightiest engine for good or ill, a man's brain. Dr. Marx says, through the two manasic auras expert observers can clearly see the fleeting impressions produced by the general thought currents, universal prevalent opinions, impressions which vary according to the receptivity of man's corresponding principle. It is in the lower manasic aura that the psychic reads the past events in the life of the subject, for the negatives are all imprinted here. I think it is a mistake to speak of these auras as emanations from the different sheaths, for I believe they are the sheaths themselves, all together making up the aura, and filling the auric envelope. Thus instead of many auras, we have simply the sheaths of the principles composing the septenary man, showing in the aura exactly how they interblend, which principle is most active, and how through increasing refinement of the component elements, the sheaths extend farther out, manifesting the same increasing subtlety of structure from within outward that we see in the physical body, from prithvi, in the bones, to pheo in the skin. If we hold this picture in mind, we have an exact correspondence in form and activities between man within his auric egg and the minutest atom. The earth, from its core to its outer atmosphere, furnishes a like correspondence. The kamic sheath of the undeveloped man is a cloudy mass of dense coarse atoms, fit to respond to all the stimuli connected with passions and appetites. Brickish browns, hot inflaming reds, and murky greens are the predominant hues, with a trace of dingy yellow about the head. Mrs. Besant says, ancient wisdom, there is no play of light or quickly changing flashes of colors through this astral body, but the various passions show themselves as heavy surges, or, when violent as flashes, thus sexual passion will send a wave of muddy crimson, rage a flash of lurid red. The centers of the organs of sense are definitely marked, and are active when worked on from without, but in quiescence the life streams are sluggish. At this stage, growth must come from outward stimuli, and often suffering, either physical or mental, is needed to rouse from a life of stupid inertia. All good and unselfish emotions are steps in ethical and mental progress that improve this sheath by refining its constituent particles. Its outlines grow clearer and finer, characteristic colors begin to assert themselves as fixed factors, though changing, ebbing and rippling, under the impulse of consciously directed thoughts and activities. Sudden ecstasies of pure exalted affection fill the whole kamic sheath with whirling thought forms of purest, luminous crimson, while a flush of translucent rose color veils all the throbbing, pulsating hues beneath. Chapter 30. The Auric Envelope, its colors. Of all the colors radiating throughout the aura, red and green have the most widely varying significations according to their purity or degradation. When these forces are uncontrolled, they become the red and green monsters within us. Red, being the lowest material vesture of the involved spirit, was visible in the skin of the first of the 7 races on our planet. We are the 5th. Though evolution has paled the ruddy tint from the exterior, it remains the color of pure flesh and blood. Its vibrations furnish the heat which maintains the normal temperature of life, and it is the happy sign of health when it flushes cheeks and lips. Under the present conditions of life, the average of racial development exposure to sunlight is believed to be the principal factor affecting the complexion of people. Black, brown, olive, and copper-hued races originating in tropic zones, and occultists do not consider the color of the skin any criterion of the mental or spiritual state of the man within. Though he were white-skinned, the aura of a very vicious man will be a brown red, or a hot black, the extreme antithesis of the dazzlingly luminous one surrounding an adept, which shines with a sun-like splendor far beyond all imagination in its glorious loveliness. The adept's causal body is not only much larger than that of the less developed, but its colors are differently arranged. Mr. Leadbeater says, these no longer move in whirling clouds, but are in great concentric shells, yet penetrated everywhere by radiations of living light always pouring forth from him as a center. The order of the colors differs according to the type to which the adept belongs, so that there are several well-marked varieties amid their glory. Throughout the auric envelope of the perfected man, playing upon its luminous mist, can be seen millions of tiny living geometrical figures of every conceivable shape, throbbing in incessant pulsations, and in the center of it can be distinguished in glowing ethereal colors the mysterious 5-pointed double star, characteristic of adeptship, human aura, marks. These geometrical figures, circles, crescents, stars, spheres, and triangles, are, of course, the tattvic vibrations, and are a part of every aura, playing through every sheath, but are not so distinct in the aura of an ordinary person, becoming more and more visible as intelligence and especially spirituality develop. All the gamut from the basest passion of supremely gross and selfish love to the most exalted affection can be traced in red. Absolutely unselfish love expresses itself in a lovely rose color, and when it is exceptionally brilliant and tinged with violet, it indicates spiritual love of humanity and exalted maternal affection. Pure crimson denotes less elevated love, jealousy tinges it with brown, and selfishness mingles clouds of dull grade green which sink below, while pride degrades it with orange. All heat and passion flush the aura with outbursts of red, from the brilliant scarlet of righteous indignation to the lurid flame color which cuts acutest triangular flashes through black hate forms. Dark, dull red is passionate and earthy when not malevolent. After outbursts of intense anger, Mr. Leadbeater says, terrible thought forms of hate may be seen floating like coils of heavy poisonous snakes in a man's aura. The variety of green in the visible world is exactly typical of the versatile human characteristics which this color manifests. Its prevalence in the aura indicates strong personality, adaptability, and too often selfishness. But these traits may be high or low according to the shade and hue. Grayed and brown hues signify that shifting indecision which is all things to all men, really a selfish cowardice ever seeking its own ends, having evolved no principles beyond desiring the obvious advantage of the moment. This green abounds in the auras of those who permit others to do their thinking for them. Selfishness varies from brown-grey to bottle green, and is, alas, very common in the desire sheath. Green is preeminently a material color, and greenbacks are aptly tinted and named, for the financial currents of the earth are deep, bright grass green. Purely material phases of intellectuality, the brains that are absorbed in things external, cram with book knowledge of the day, with statistics and crude facts, send forth vibrations of bright green. Strong self-consciousness, the sense of personality, is vivid, clear green, and according to the striving for growth, the hope and aspiration felt, may shade from apple to emerald. Where soul consciousness and individuality as distinct from personality develop, the green changes through peacock blue to deep, luminous sapphire. Higher mental qualities which bring distinction in the arts and are nourished from springs of intuition vibrate in this exquisite azure. All the music of the spheres vibrates in the indigo blue of Ictia, in which are all colors and out of which they flow. With respect to music and other arts, Madame Blavatsky says they are the children of either the higher Manasic or Karma Manasic principle proportionately as soul or technicality predominates. Thus there will be more red and green in the aura of the technique devotee than blue. She further says, metaphysics are the domain of the higher monus, whereas physics are that of calmer monus, which does the thinking in physical science and on material things. The mathematician without spirituality, however great he may be, will not reach metaphysics, but the metaphysician will master the highest conceptions of mathematics, and will apply them, without learning the latter. Pure deep blue indicates devotion, pale sapphire, spiritual perception, and the light hues, as turquoise, cobalt, and robin's egg, exalted ideals and emotions. Yet blue, too, may be degraded. If greyed or muddied, the religious devotion is mere bigotry or selfish fear. Sudden fright casts a ghastly livid grey veil over all. It is almost superfluous to remind the student of the lofty character of yellow, or of its beneficial effects when prevalent in the aura. It spreads the joyous contagion of its own vitality, calming and stimulating at one and the same time as effectually as the gloomy, pernicious grey of depression exhausts and disturbs. So if you would benefit your fellows, see to it first of all that you radiate health-giving colors from your aura, which, you cannot do unless you encourage the thoughts that create them. Not until the causal body is developed sufficiently to control lower monus and karma, does this beneficent and forceful current find a favorable medium through which to act. The prevalence of clear, deep yellow and good pure green in the aura indicate a happy, generous, sympathetic, and hopeful character evolving to higher states. Yellow manifests the highest and noblest intellectual effort, true wisdom and aspiration, freed from objective, material striving, and therefore represents the highest power and loftiest aspect of spirituality which our race is capable of grasping and understanding. The positive power of this principle is proved by its dominance over all other colors with which it is blended. Pride vibrates as orange, but in the degree that the red is shaken out of it, is it raised to pure aspiration. Because of its penetrating power, yellow is the color most easily perceived by normal sight, and it has been visible as a veritable halo around the heads of speakers engaged in some supreme effort of enthusiasm which freed the soul to its fullest expression. In such cases the vigor of the astral vibrations rouses a sympathetic vibration even in the coarse and heavy matter of the physical plane. Exalted spiritual vibrations cause a violet cloud to rise from the crown of the head in the midst of surrounding yellow of a luminous tint, and the violet sparkles through and through with golden specks. It is in the aura of the pineal gland that perception is located. This aura answers in vibrations to any impressions, but it can only be sensed, not perceived, in the living man. During the process of thought manifesting in consciousness, a constant vibration occurs in the light of this aura, and a clairvoyant looking at the brain of a living man may almost see with the spiritual eye, the 7 scales, the 7 shades of light, passing from the dullest to the brightest. You touch your hand, before you touch it the vibration is already in the aura of the pineal gland, and has its own shade of color. It is this aura which causes the wear and tear of the organ by the vibrations it sets up. There are 7 cavities in the brain which are quite empty during life. These centers are, in occultism, called the 7 harmonies, the scale of the divine harmonies. They are filled with aksha, each with its own color, according to the state of consciousness in which you are. The 4th is the pituitary body, the 5th is the 3rd ventricle, the 6th is the pineal gland, which is hollow and empty during life, and the 7th is the whole. When Monus is united to Atma Buddhi, or when Atma Buddhi is centered in Monus, it acts in the 3 higher cavities, radiating, sending forth a halo of light, and this is visible in the case of a very holy person. Secret Doctrine, Volume 3, pages 577 and 583. The front brain has a higher grade of colors than the back brain. The countless magnetic and electric curves which radiate from the head and surround it with a play of exquisite colors correspond vividly with the 1,000-petaled lotus of the yogi. The colors thus seen by psychic vision to emanate from different parts of the brain corroborate all that phrenology claims as to special seats of faculties, or emotions and activities, and all that occultists teach, and this statement holds also with regard to the whole body. The heart is the center of spiritual consciousness as is the brain of intellectual, and all the play of light in the aura of the pineal gland is reflected in the heart's aura, which vibrates and illumines the 7 brains of the heart, just as does the aura around the pineal gland. Corroboratory of these statements is that of Dr. Babbitt that the brain has been seen to have 5 great leading poles, or centers of luminous radiation, the greater of which is in the center, besides which it has minor poles in all the organs which connect with the center pole. Clairvoyants can see explosive flashes of light from all nerve ganglia, and wanting occult training might fail to distinguish the septenary. Although the colors of all these auras are as constantly shifting and changing as the waters in the seething whirlpool at Niagara, the particles pulsating with inconceivable velocity, yet yellow, rose, blue, and violet if present, are always found in the upper part of the aura about the head and shoulders, while red, from pure crimson to its hot, lurid hues, radiates midway, from shoulders to thighs, and the debased colors of debasing qualities are below. The purer the color the higher, thus most greens and deep orange are about the feet and lower limbs, but the pure green of versatility and sympathy is seen above the shoulders. The all-penetrating, all-permeating force, binding all together, the aural light, is the manifestation of the spirit within, which forms the envelope or egg, and appears as a faintly luminous silver-blue-violet shadow, irradiated with the hue which gives the key to the individual. The more highly developed the person, the more distinct is this hue, the unmistakable mark of the ruling hierarchy, and the evidence of the presence of the special ray connecting every individual soul with its hierarchy. Even a slight understanding of the nature of the influences with which men people the contiguous astral realm, influences which are constantly affecting man for good or ill, according to the nature of the thoughts and desires which he permits to dwell in his consciousness, would inevitably increase the sense of responsibility as to the purity and elevation of his habitual thoughts and aims. Ignoble thoughts, selfish, jealous, or passionate thoughts, or the stings of deadly hatred, enter only the centers where like thoughts hold sway. So he who indulges such polluting, discordant thoughts draws added incentive to his own evil thinking, while heaping on fuel to that of his fellows. It is through the medium of astral matter that all our thoughts vibrate. They take form there instantly and change with the utmost rapidity, seeking always their affinity or pursuing the direction in which they are consciously sent. Every unselfish emotion purifies all the vibrations as pure air clears a smoky atmosphere. Loving thoughts help all the region through which they pass. You see, there are thought forms just as there are tone and voice forms. Mrs. Besant puts this very strongly, and says thoughts may be angels or devils, and man is held responsible, not by a vengeful God but by law, for their creation. And she gives this comforting thought: many a mother's loving prayers go to hover round her son as angel forms, turning aside from him evil influences that perchance his own thoughts are attracting. Ancient Wisdom, pages 77 to 81. Not only does all our real and lasting happiness here depend upon the use we make of our thought power, but exactly in the proportion that we develop and gain control of the mind stuff will be the perfection of that heaven we all hope to attain after this earth life. For Devachan, the heaven plane, or world, is in substance mind stuff, and it yields to us exactly what we have power to mold, to think into a reality, because every mental act takes immediate form there. Hence heaven is as beautiful and perfect as we have the ability to make it. The outflow of spiritual or psychic energy from the auras of those who through ceaseless aspiration are advancing rapidly on the path is of marvelous potency. There is scarce a limit to be placed upon the beneficence of such characters, of the effect of their work and influence. Their mere presence is felt as an inspiration, as a healing blessing. Aspiration is the exercise of the soul, through which it grows to heights invisible. Who can doubt that the present awakening of the public conscience, the great moral wave sweeping round the world, is due to the pure vibrations emanating from the ever-increasing army of those who have come under the great light through the widespread teaching of the power of thought to manipulate life's forces? It is the real life science, explaining God's purpose and His laws.